Hey, welcome to the show.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Love and Beyond the I Do podcast.
With your hosts, Jason and Tina Marie.
That's me. So this week, Jason, what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about getting advice and just getting advice and asking people questions about your relationship.
What do you mean? Asking people for advice or people just giving you advice?
A little bit of both. Sometimes it's warranted and sometimes it's not. Sometimes you ask for advice, and then sometimes people just think that you need some advice.
So they just give it to you.
So they'll give it to you.
Sort of like new parents.
Right. Because they can
say,
see what's going on in your relationship. So they figure like, you know what, you're going to need for me to tell you about your relationship. So
you think people should do that?
Do I think people should do that? Probably not, but people do. But because they're trying to help.
Right. So why do you think people shouldn't?
Because I may not be ready to accept that. So if I'm not ready to accept,
but sometimes people just give you advice. What do you mean accept?
Well,
like sometimes people
I can understand advice.
They see something and maybe they say, well, if you continue doing this, this might happen. Or, hey, this happened to me before. So, but to me, you may not want it. Because
people may not just give you that advice. It's more like, you need to do this because of this person.
Not necessarily. Some people just give you advice. They just tell you about life lessons. I've been down that road before.
Right.
And this is something that could happen.
That is true.
Right.
It could
so
happen.
sometimes people don't always say what you should do. I think there's nothing wrong with giving advice.
I don't think there's anything wrong with giving advice. I just think that it may not be advice. It's more like, you need to do this. You need to follow this.
But what if it's not?
Then it's fine if it benefits you. All advice doesn't benefit you.
Well, that's with anything. So what I'm saying is, do you think people should actually
pry in other people's business?
It may not be prying. You just said
it is if it's unwarranted advice.
You just said they're trying to help.
They're trying to help.
So you see somebody struggling with something, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you just go, somebody's struggling with their groceries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you walk over to their car and you say, oh, here, let me help you.
And they'll go, no, okay, I'm fine.
Okay, but you offer to help. That's the same thing somebody's doing with advice.
Mm-hmm.
They say, here, let me tell you
some. So if you're going to give me some advice about my relationship, right?
Okay.
Are you going to say, hey, I have some advice I would like to give you, or you're just going to go in and give me that information? Or that
it depends
advice?
on the person, because some people may start it off in a way that they're asking you and they're saying, from my opinion, from my perspective, or from my experience, this has happened to me. And I see it happening in your relationship. Okay. And I just wanted to let you know. Right?
Oh, you're gonna let me know about my relationship?
No, about the same situation.
Oh, okay.
Because like you see the person struggling, right?
Right. I see the person struggling with the groceries.
Right.
And the person, when I notice that they're struggling, I go up and ask, "Do you need some help?"
Right.
And they say,
"But
no, I haven't."
But you gave them the advice of help. You're asking them, "Do you want the help?" So when you
I get the advice, it's not about.
It is help. It's help, right? Some people are trying to help.
But I'm not asking you, do you want? Would you like some information on that situation you're going through? Is that what you should say?
No, it's not about should. Some people do that.
Oh, they go, man, you need to do this, and this. Because if that was me, then I would do this.
No, people only do that when you say, man, let me tell you about my old girl, blah, blah, blah.
Yep,
or let me tell you about what happened. Or let me tell, and then they say, man, if I was you, or man, you should do. That's when they say that. Because you're opening up the door. That's an open-ended statement. So you're opening up the door for them to give you advice. If you don't want advice, then you probably shouldn't be giving information. Or maybe you should make that known beforehand. So you say, okay, disclaimer. I'm
going to say this, but I don't want you to give me any advice or say anything to me.
People have said that to me. People have said that to me. I'm not going to say who. They have said, you know what? I don't want you to respond. I just want you to listen. And I'd be like, oh, okay. Because you don't know. You don't know when people call. No, because you don't know when people are calling. Sometimes people are calling to vent.
Okay.
But they don't want your opinion. They just want to vent. And then sometimes people are calling to get your opinion. What should I do? So if the person says it up front, then you have a better idea of where you stand.
Okay. I give you that.
So, and then I know in the past, before I grew up, in the past, people were having a conversation. They have said some things, and then I give my opinion. But maybe they didn't want my opinion. So now,
but you were just trying to help. I mean, you wasn't prying.
I was we were talking. So I'm thinking that you're saying one thing, you're giving your opinion, you're talking about the situation. So I'm giving my opinion. I'm talking about, it's not advice. I'm just talking about my knowledge in the situation, and maybe they take it as advice. But sometimes people want to talk about stuff, People want to get advice on stuff, and then sometimes people just want to vent.
All of that is true. So if you're venting, you don't really want anything.
Right.
You just want to say your part and you're done. You don't want somebody to come back and really say anything.
So, know, like something's bothering you and you just want to get it off your chest so you can stop thinking about it.
Right.
So that's that time when you should call somebody and say, hey, look, I'm having this situation. I don't want your advice. And not that it's
I
not.
Just want a kind ear.
Right. Okay. I just want you to listen and that's it. And then you say, okay, but you have to know who you're talking to. Right?
Right.
Okay. So when we're talking about should you get advice from people, I think you should get advice because sometimes you need advice.
I give you that. I think you should.
But I think you should get advice from the right people who have either been through that situation, who are much older, because sometimes wisdom comes with age.
It does.
You don't always have to have it through
experiences.
Yeah.
So if you go through the experiences, then that give you some wisdom.
I said in that same situation.
Right.
So if you don't have the experience, then sometimes your age will give you some wisdom into that information on relationships, because either you've done it or you've seen it with someone else.
Right.
So you're growing up and you've seen it in your girlfriends and your mom and your parents. So you can give advice because you've lived long enough to understand the situation fully. Okay. So I don't think there's anything wrong with getting advice. I just think we have to be careful who we get advice from.
True. But you got to take a look at the person's relationship. If their stuff is rocky.
No.
If their stuff is rocky, are you going to take advice from them?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So because you know what?
If you already have an issue. Yeah.
Rocky, it does not always mean that person's doing something wrong.
I didn't say they were doing anything wrong. I said their relationship was rocky. In my eyes, their relationship is rocky. Should I take that advice?
Well, she knows. I think that could help. So my relationship is rocky, and I know what I'm doing wrong, and I know what's not working in my relationship. I would say, you know what? Looking back, this is what makes my relationship rocky, so I don't think you should do this.
That is very big of you if you will come out like that.
But sometimes what someone once said, they can look back or look at their situation and say, I could have done that differently.
Yes.
You know? So so if your relationship was rocky, let's say you got a divorce.
Right.
So we've read lots of books on relationships where people have actually gotten divorces. Right. And then they come back and write a book. And in that book, they say what? If I had have known this then, my relationship could have been different. Right. So
I would have taken a different avenue. Yes.
So again, you can learn from other people's experience. If you touch the pot and you know it's hot and you tell me not to touch it just because you're burned, don't mean I'm not going to listen to you. Right? Well, it's funny. Right?
Yeah, you burn and then you have a different outlook. Right? So you burn.
Exactly.
So you're going to say,
he could have told me. He could have told me. He could have told me that the pot was
right. So you just have to be careful, because if their relationship is not on the same level as your relationship, the information is going to be.
I don't think it's the relationship.
Yes,
I think it's the person. No, I think it's the person you're getting advice from, because some people learn from it, some people don't. Some people don't know. Some people don't grow.
So we have someone that is going to give me some advice. I'm talking to my buddy, right? And
are you asking him?
We're just rapping right now, right?
So
we're just having a conversation, right, between two fellas. So we're talking. And
how does the conversation go between two fellas?
That's man law, baby. You almost got me. I ain't breaking that code. Ain't kicking me out the club.
Okay.
All right.
So men are so discreet with their
conversations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, it's so okay.
So we had some man talk.
We can talk about that too. What men talk about men about, but what they won't talk about each other.
Right. So
but men are just okay.
Right. We having a man convo.
Women, I think women get deep.
You do.
Men get.
Because we get deep, then we look soft, and we're not gonna go that deep.
But it doesn't matter. Everybody experiences the same thing.
Maybe
all men, whether you display softness, you still have to have some softness. Right. Whether you display, I'm a teddy bear. Everybody goes through the same. A man is a man, and if they're in a relationship, they're going to go through the same. You're going to go through issues, problems, sex, money, in-laws.
All that is true.
My wife wears a bonnet to bed. All of that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not all, because there's a few people out there wife do not wear bonnets to bed.
Yeah, but we'll go so far in the conversation, and then we'll be like, I don't want to say that, and then that's gonna make me look too soft.
But why do you all do that when you really need it to help?
So let me go back to the conversation.
Okay, going back to the conversation at hand.
So I'm having a conversation with my buddy.
With your buddy,
and we're just talking about certain things, and I know that his relationship is not on a good level. right?
Okay.
So they're having some issues in their relationships, and they haven't kind of worked through them.
Right.
And then now I'm like experiencing a little speed bump in my relationship, right?
Okay.
So I'll say, hey, man, this, that, and the other, and hey, I'm just kind of just voicing my
problems. I'm just putting
my
it out there,
issues,
some
right? I'm
things
just
right
kind of
now.
pushing it
Like
out
I'm a
there.
little
And
upset
then-
right now, so
right.
I just want to
Right.
voice them.
I'm not really asking for any advice. And he goes, man, really, what you need to do, man, you need to do this, and that. You need to talk to her about this. You need to do that. And I'll go, maybe you're right, but I don't know if I'm going to receive it because your stuff not together.
But his stuff may not be together on
Right.
that. On
Well,
that.
I can't-
But no.
I
But
can't-
listen. But his stuff may not be together on that front.
Right.
His stuff might not be together because they're not having sex. Your stuff might not be together because you're having problems with your in-laws.
I
So maybe
understand that.
he's accomplished that. Maybe he tackled
but
that
maybe
thing.
that's my issue because I'm looking at their relationship.
But you can't. Our relationships aren't equal.
I understand that, but
Just-
if you
I
don't
mean, it's-
look like,
it's just- it's the same
if it
thing.
looks like you guys are not getting along, then how am I
But
going to
it's
take
along
advice
in
from
what
you?
area? It's just like you saying, well, you can't tutor me in math because you're struggling in reading. No, I'm an A student in math, but in reading I struggle. So I can tell you what you're
Well,
doing
I need
wrong.
them to get an A in relationship. I don't want them to get an A somewhere
But
else
I'm
in their
telling you,
relationship.
it's different. It's, okay, the relationship diagram is so complex.
I'm not
in
saying
so
it's not.
many in so many different aspects and concepts
Emotions and feelings.
angles.
Oh, I got all that.
And depths, like right because there's the new relationship, there's the old relationship, and there's the medium relationship, and then
I
there's
love you relationship,
I mean,
and the
there's
one
there's,
that you get
there's
on my
so many
nerve
different-
relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
Only thing I would say is that there's nothing wrong with taking advice from
Right.
someone, but just take it with a grain of salt.
And that's the thing.
Right. So we have to be smart enough in our relationships to know what we can use, what we can't use, and what we should use and shouldn't use.
And that's the key. It could be good advice, but I'm looking at their relationship, so I don't know if I can really accept that advice. And it may be credible advice, and I may need
that's what
it,
I'm saying.
Right? It may be what I need at this time
Yep,
to further along my relationship or better my relationship. But I can't get past the fact that they stuff isn't together in my eyes. So
Is that a man thing? Is that what you're saying? A man thing?
I don't
is 'cause
think
you and
I don't
your buddy,
think
or is
it's-
that just
I think,
across the
I think
board?
that's across the board with relationships. It's like, how you gonna kind of counsel me on this and your
Really?
stuff is not together, right?
Trying to think, have I ever asked anyone? I don't think so. I've spoken to women, friends, about their relationships.
Right.
When you're talking to get a viewpoint from someone, you're not really judging their relationship, because what you're doing is you're judging his relationship. You're not
I
judging.
am.
You're not
I know.
judging his
And I know.
validity of the information
of
that
the
he knows.
advice he's giving me. Right, I am.
But you can't judge the
But I'm
relationship
sure-
because, like you said, the information may actually be accurate. It may actually help
Exactly.
you.
I may be undercutting my own self,
Right.
Because I'm not receiving the information.
Because you're blind about the fact that he's struggling in his relationship.
Right. It could be some good
Well,
information.
what could it be like this? Well, hey, man, I'm struggling in this, and he said, well, you should do that, and then you say, and he says, I'm struggling in this, and you say, well, hey, you should do that, because this is what works in my relationship, and I don't have that
I think
problem.
that's more acceptable. I can accept that if it says, you know what, my relationship isn't all that great, but in this area, man, listen, we kind of mastered that.
See?
I can understand that. Okay, I can.
But
I can
it's
respect
still
that.
rocky though. But you see, it's still rocky.
I understand that, but
but
he's telling me that in this
Right.
area we're okay, but here is where we're really having issues. So I was like, okay, I can see that. I see where you're having issues because this is what I visually see. So and then you give me information. I'm like, okay, this is kind of where I'm struggling, and I can understand what you're saying. Now I think I'll be more open.
So it's okay
I would feel
to
that
get
would be-
advice, right?
It is okay to get advice when you're asking for it.
When you're not asking for it, they
You're not going
shouldn't
to
give
be you're not going to be susceptible to it. You're not going to receive it well because you're not asking for it. Because normally when advice comes, they're telling you versus advising you.
Not all the time.
Majority of the time, they'll say, "Well,
Maybe.
what you should do, man, you should sit
On
down,
an average,
and
maybe.
you should
I
do
don't
this,
know.
and you should do that, and maybe try this or try that."
So when people are giving advice, they shouldn't tell people what to do.
Was the advice
Because-
asked for, or
Well,
was
no,
it
we're
just given?
No, we're talking about when people are giving, not when advice was asked. When people are just,
think you
when
should
people are,
ask them.
as you said, when people are putting their nose in your business, but that's how you see it. But they may look at it as,
know they look at it
like
as
this
that,
person is struggling, and I've done that, been there. So
Right.
let me give some advice
I think you
as to
should
how
start
I got out
exactly. So if you could say that, and it's
So
all
when,
about
so
it's all
when
about the
giving
delivery.
advice, so when giving advice that has not been asked for, we should start off with the disclaimer. Hey, I've been in that situation,
Yep.
or I'm familiar with this, or something
Like
to
and all
along,
of that, yes.
right? All of
you
that.
got to warm me up a little bit.
Okay, so just say, let share with you what I did and
Exactly.
what worked and what didn't work, and you can kind of take what you want and leave the rest on the table.
There you go.
Okay,
Now,
something like that.
But
okay.
if I just jump in and say, "Hey, man, listen, this is how,"
but what if it's good advice? What if somebody just jump in and it's good advice?
But like, how he gonna tell me that, and his stuff is not together?
But what if his stuff is together?
But if his stuff is together, then
it's still unwarranted
okay.
advice.
All right, so his stuff is together, right?
Right.
Now I think he's talking down to me. Oh, because he got his.
You got some issues. He got some issues.
I might have some.
Wait, so how is a person who's supposed to give you advice supposed to give it to you if you're already at a standpoint? I don't want his advice. His stuff ain't right. Then your other advice, I don't want his advice because he think he's better than me.
He think his relationship is better than mine. So mine.
It is better than yours because you're having issues.
Well, that's how they portray it in the public, but I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. So it could go either way.
He's telling you his stuff is right, and
right.
if it's
he's showing it too,
and he's showing it too. If it's showed in the public that it's all right, then it's all right.
So for me, I guess I'm complicated. I don't want it if your stuff is raggedy, and I don't want it if your stuff together.
So, but you said that you can receive it. So now
I could, but you got to give me a little caveat. You can't just give me the advice like you like just giving it to me.
Actually, a person said that about me in my younger years.
Did you always sticking your nose in other folks' business?
No, 5 years, about 5, 6, maybe 5 to 10 years ago.
Okay.
I'm up the ante. I was like, what do you think about me? No, I think it was like, what are my strengths or weaknesses or something like that.
Right.
And they said, you give advice, you
give advice that nobody wants to hear.
Or wasn't asked for.
Well, right, there you go. Yep.
Right. So you often give advice that wasn't asked for. Mm-hmm. You have to see the relationship of that person.
Exactly.
So I think that plays a role too.
Right.
So if it's a son or a daughter or a sister or an aunt or somebody in your family that you're close to, you may do that because you feel comfortable with that person, and you do it out of love because you don't want to see that person hurt. Right. But the other person,
but see, that's a whole different dynamics when it's family versus a friend.
Nope.
Or an associate.
I think. Well, see, the thing is that you're giving advice to a family member, but it's the person who they're in a relationship with is not in the family.
Right.
So that's the friend aspect of it,
but
and they don't want it. They don't want your advice.
Because in the family, you feel like you have a right to give your advice and your opinion.
But the other person, you know what? Now that I see that, the other person may feel like you're being one-sided.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, because you care about your family member.
That's probably how they see it.
Right.
So we have to be careful when we give advice and who we give advice to and how we give it. Right?
Yeah,
you
100%.
have to, so not only does it have to be asked for, but if you're going to offer advice, you have to make sure you come in with that disclaimer, this is what I did, or do you mind if I say something to you, or would you like to hear something that I have to say? Something, do you want some advice? You ask first, right?
What? Yeah, you can. Go ahead.
But then I have to not always take sides. We have to be neutral in giving advice.
I have to agree, especially if you're a family member.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Or if you're a friend to both of the people in the relationship.
True.
You really have to stay neutral.
So I think you should be neutral all the way around.
Yeah, but it's hard sometimes. I mean, like if I'm
these are things that I think people should do if they're going to give advice.
Right.
You should ask.
Right.
You shouldn't just offer. And if you decide that you want to ask, you have to ask, and if they say no, respect the fact that they said no, and just keep your opinion to yourself, because really, even if you have knowledge or experience, it's still your opinion. Because not everybody did it your way and it worked out. So it's still your opinion.
It is. And just because you give them that advice does not mean that that's going to help their relationship.
So in saying that, so if someone gives you advice and you don't follow it, you think they get upset?
You know what? They probably will. Like, man, if you'll just listen to me, you probably.
So then that's why we shouldn't give advice, right? And that's why we shouldn't listen. And that's why we shouldn't solicit it.
Or if you give it lovingly, you can give it and let it go, but don't give it with the fact that
they need to follow it.
They need to follow it, and if they don't, that's why they suffer. And then you sitting over there.
But what if it is the reason? What if you told them some advice to do something a certain way and they didn't? I mean, I've seen that in you.
Yeah, I gave you some advice. And you didn't follow it. Yep.
Could have been me. So, okay, let's just say it was me. Okay, so you've given me some advice and I didn't follow it.
Right.
Hypothetically.
Right.
Okay. And then you may have said to me.
Point for me.
If you had to listen to me, then you wouldn't be going through that.
Exactly.
But you don't ask people for advice to follow it.
I know.
You ask for advice to weigh out your options.
And it's just some things you got to work on. I mean, like, that's one of them.
Yeah.
When I give advice, I'll give my opinion on something.
Exactly.
And if they don't, I kind of be like, man,
you have to be neutral.
Right. It's like, man,
you got to be neutral. Yeah. You got to be neutral because ultimately it's their decision.
It is. And I know that.
And that's why people say stay out of domestic stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
Keep your opinion. Most
friendships are broken up over domestic stuff. You got in somebody else's relationship stuff.
Yep.
But you care about the person, so you want to just lend a helping hand. You really don't want to see anybody hurting.
Right. But the thing is this, you may not want to see them hurting, but you may be hurting, like you said.
Right.
So your relationship is okay. You don't want to take your own advice, but you're going to give me advice on my relationship.
Yep. Yeah. You'd be like, he's hurting. I know where he's about to go. I'm going to go ahead and help him with this. I'm going to tell him this, what he need to do, so he doesn't have to get to this point and feel like I feel. Mm-hmm. Yep. And that, it may work. And then if he doesn't do it, now you upset with him because you know that he may end up in this place.
Or sometimes people give advice when they're angry. Mm-hmm. So you're angry at your spouse, you're in your relationship, you're angry in your relationship for whatever reason.
Right.
Right. And so your significant other made you mad. You happen to be talking to a friend. Mm-hmm. Now you're actually in the moment of being upset. So you're giving advice based on emotions, not based on facts. Right. So that's another thing we have to pay attention to. How are people feeling at that moment, not only about their relationship, but how are they feeling about the person who you're getting advice for? Yeah. What if they don't like the person you're in a relationship with, and they've never really liked them?
Yep.
And so now they're not giving you advice from an educational base, right, type of information, but more from a feeling type of,
Yeah, or, what if I really don't want you two to be together or something, and I'll give you some advice.
I saw that in a relationship. I keep having these moments in this interview right now.
Right.
Right.
I don't think that this person is good for you. And then you find a way to get.
It may not be good. Maybe you were dating my friend, right? And now you're not dating my friend anymore. Now you're dating somebody else. And I really want you to get back on my friend.
Oh, yeah.
So now anybody that you date, even though you and I are friends, I'm not going to like that other person because in the back of my mind, I don't like the fact that you're not with my friend.
Yep.
So getting advice that way too.
That's so true. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when we talk about getting advice, should we seek advice from people? From friends, family members, associates, co-workers? Ministers,
I would say
why
ministers.
You don't think ministers can be bipartisan?
They can.
Yeah, I think so too.
They can.
So what if you're dating someone who's not in the church, right?
Well, they don't have to be in the church.
No. I'm saying, what if you're dating someone who's not in the church and you go to a minister and say, hey, I want my spouse to come to church, and they won't, or I'm dating someone and we're thinking about getting married.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But I have another person who goes to church, and I'm interested in them too. So I'm trying to draw a scenario here. It all depends on the person, because sometimes we are biased, right?
We are.
For whatever reason.
Yes.
So if we're
in church and out of church,
if we're religious and the person who you're talking about is not, then they're going to try to make it seem as though a relationship can't work if one person is in faith and the other person is not, which is not true.
Correct.
I mean, it's nice. It makes the relationship it makes the relationship better. But there are plenty of people who both of them do not have the same faith, and the relationship is fantastic.
Exactly.
Like we said before, what it boils down to is that we really have to be careful who we seek advice from, and if we're actually seeking advice, even out of books. We have to be careful with what we read. We can't take everything as face value because
you can't, because
our backgrounds are different.
It's written from their perspective,
right?
Especially relationships books, because
yes.
if a person is hurt or a person has gone through something that has not healed, and they put it in
Exactly.
that book,
Right.
and then you pick it up and you start reading it,
That's true.
and then it just turns your soul a different way from
Right.
the
So
way that you were actually
you're being
looking.
attracted to that book for the simple fact that you and that person who wrote it have the same hurt in common or the same consciousness.
Yep.
And so you're reading that based on the same level. Say, yep, this is exactly what I was saying.
Yep.
So when we're reading books or taking seminars or getting advice from people, we have to weigh it. Weigh it against our own knowledge, our own experience, and we have to get it from more than one source.
Yeah.
And we have to do
And you
what's
have to-
best for
us.
our situation.
Yeah, you have to rely on you more so than just the outside source. You can take that.
So it's nothing wrong with getting advice.
It is not anything wrong with getting advice. But you just don't say, if I get advice from you, that's the only advice that I'm going to take.
Right.
And say,
right, I think
that's
so.
the law. You've given me advice, and that's it. And this is how I'm going to move. I'm not going to put any of my feelings or desires into it. I'm just going to do whatever advice you gave me. Well, I did this and it didn't work. Well, I did this and she said this, and then I didn't know what to do because you didn't tell me the second part of the advice, right? So if someone tells you to say, hey, I love you more at dinner, you say it and you say, yeah, I can say that. And I can say, hey, you know what? How was your day? Your hair looks nice, all that other stuff. So you put your own thing on that. But yeah, they kind of pull something out of you and said, hey, they lead with telling her that you love her more. And then you start that and you put your own little stuff in there. So if you do that, it'll be fine. But if I'm only going to take the advice that you give me, then I got a problem. That's not going to do me any good because it never goes just like that. Because I'm going to give you advice on a particular scenario, right? But then when she says or he says something else, that's not part of that advice that you've given me.
So now you don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do.
So do you think people should give advice if if they're not asked?
You have to leave it
So
in. Like I said before.
I'm looking at you and I see you're in a situation and I'm going.
Can I share something with you? Do you mind if I just?
So, but do you think
ask?
people should ask? Do you think they should ask, or do you?
I think so.
You think so because like you said, sometimes people don't want it. If they wanted it, they would have asked you. You know their problem.
Well, people may be
embarrassed. You know their
embarrassed.
problem, and I know their problem. They know it.
People may be embarrassed too. So
if they're embarrassed to ask, they're embarrassed to receive it. Don't you think so? Sometimes
yes,
people don't want, like you said, people aren't going back to the beginning of this.
Right.
Sometimes people aren't really ready to hear it, or they really don't want the advice.
Yeah, well, stop telling me all your issues then if you ain't ready to hear some.
Well, sometimes people, people issues are just out there for public display.
Yeah. I think some people, a lot of times, this is a whole nother issue though. People just want to share their issues more so than any type of
resolution.
Yes.
Right, exactly. Like when people call me and say, I got this issue. Yeah. I don't want your opinion. I just want you to listen.
Okay.
But then that was just hypothetical too because, I'm nobody's garbage can.
Right, I guess
so. We have to make sure that we're not intaking a bunch of garbage because then that affects our relationship. Right. So if you're constantly listening to someone who has a toxic relationship and they're constantly complaining to you about it and you're pretty much like tired of it, you're tired of it because of the fact that they're constantly dumping their issues off on you. Yep. And now you're digesting them and inhaling them and putting them on as clothing, and now you're walking around with their problems after they're good. It's off of their chest. Right. They can sleep at night.
And then they start to show up in your life.
Right.
Man, you know what? The same thing happened to me in my relationship.
Right.
You start to manifest it in your own life.
So we have to be careful not only what we talk about, the advice that we give, but how often people who have issues are calling us about the issues. There's nothing wrong with helping someone. There's nothing wrong with listening every now and again. But I think it should not be, if you're not a therapist or you're not a psychiatrist or you're not,
licensed? Oh, I can give my 2 cents. I don't have to have anything to give my 2 cents.
I don't think you should be the garbage can for somebody who's constantly throwing garbage in. Yeah. That's what I was going to say.
You need professional help when you got that much garbage.
Right. So we have to be careful what we intake from other people.
Right.
So that's kind of like advice in a roundabout way. So people are calling you, telling you about their relationship. Well, let me tell you about this. Well, let me tell you how this worked out. Let me tell you what he did. And let me tell you what she did. And so it can't help but affect you because then if something similar in your relationship comes up like that, that's going to come up in your mind.
Sure is.
So again, they're kind of giving you advice in a roundabout way because now when you see it, you're going to base your relationship off of what you heard, which is sort of like advice.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
In a roundabout way.
In a roundabout way. Yeah. So
if you can do it that way, I think you can get away with it in a roundabout way.
No, I'm just saying like people who have problems. People who have problems have a tendency of dumping them off on other people.
Oh yeah,
and
okay,
so now
okay. I misunderstood. Yes.
Right. Now you become the garbage can. Right. And so now, even though they didn't give it to you as advice, it becomes advice because now you're weighing your problems up against what they have shown you, right?
Right.
And the thing is awareness. If you're not aware of something, then it has no bearing on you.
Right.
But now that you're aware of something, then you go, well, wait a minute. Now I want to align that up with what my issues and how that could be the same thing.
Is that what we do? We judge our relationship based on other people?
We do. Yeah. We do.
Say,
which is why we give advice.
Right. Because, I don't have this problem, but this person had this problem. And let's see. So, yeah, I can see that. Then that stuff, like I said, start manifesting.
Well, that's even in marriages and relationships, right? So when I get with you, I'm going to weigh and balance and check you against my old relationships, right?
Yes, in the beginning.
When you pass the test and now you and I are together, now I'm looking at our relationship in comparison to other relationships, right?
Right.
I'm not, but I'm just speaking.
Yeah.
Right.
Friends and families and stuff like that.
That's what people do.
Right.
Which is also a form of unsolicited advice, right?
Yep.
So you're advising your relationship, comparing it to someone else's that people didn't even give it to you. Now you're just interpreting what you think you see.
Through your lens. This is what you see in their relationship.
Right.
Yeah. Non-verbal communication.
Well, that could be bad because then people could be looking at us.
Yeah, we messed up. I know how to put on a good front.
No. We just have to be careful how we get advice, how we give advice, and how we're basing our relationships judged on other people's relationship. Filling ourselves up with information that is pertinent to, you know, who we are as an individual, what we're looking for, and how we actually solve problems. Because how I solve a problem may not be how you solve a problem.
True.
Right? Someone told me that the phrase, the truth hurts, right? They were saying something and they said, well, the truth hurts. And then they said, well, how does that make sense? Because sometimes people say things that aren't the truth.
And it hurts.
And then I said, well, I think that says it itself. The truth hurts. And if there was no truth in the statement, then it wouldn't hurt you. Because if it doesn't apply to you, it just goes right past.
Right.
So they were like, that's not true, because sometimes people say things and it's not true.
It must resonate with you.
It must. So that statement right there says that there has to be something that you're thinking, feeling, or attached to in that statement for you to be hurt by it, or for it to resonate with you, because like you said, the truth hurts.
Yes.
So when we compare our relationships to other relationships, the truth is that we don't have that, right? So the truth is that we're looking at, well, that's what a relationship is. And you see, so that's the definition, that's the epitome of a relationship. And so therefore we're basing our judgment up against it. And now we're taking our own advice or the outside advice as to what a relationship is. We're getting advice and we're not even realizing we're getting advice.
Which is dangerous.
Which is dangerous.
Yep. That's why you have to stay in control.
If any of that all makes sense.
Yeah, you have to stay in control of your relationship, because you'll get steered off in many different directions, right? So you have to be careful.
Even if the driver's seat, sometimes you get steered off many directions.
Exactly.
Because life is complicated. People are complicated. Relationships are complicated.
And we all want that. That ultimate perfect relationship, if there's such a thing.
Relationship, right?
Yeah. But
the thing that doesn't really exist.
No. Especially if you haven't worked for it or worked towards it.
I mean, and I think even in the beginning when everything is grand and there's no arguments and you guys get along and you don't see the flaws of the other person, I still think that's not something that is not utopic. And it's, you know what I'm saying? Because there's still something there, even though everything is that honeymoon phase, there's still issues there. So there's still something there. I think
no one can make someone happy 100% of the time.
Right. I think we strive for, so like people say, you strive for excellence, but you can't reach the top level and keep striving for it. I think there's always, you're constantly working and working and working and working for improvement.
Oh yeah.
Even in the honeymoon phase.
That's true.
You know, love is new or brand new.
Or you're just trying to keep it in that one little area.
Right.
This particular time.
If we be honest.
Right. I wanted to stay right here. I want my relationship to just stay right here because it's like perfect right here.
Right. And I think if we be honest in that stage, if we're honest with each other, and even in the honeymoon phase, there's still issues that's there that we just don't recognize.
Right.
We just don't want to.
We don't want to bring them up.
Right.
We're not going to talk about them.
Right. So, I mean, there is no ultimate relationship.
We'll just talk about that later. Let's not ruin the moment right now.
So I think if we can learn how to be in that, though, be in that state of compromise, that state of lovingness, of acceptance of who you are. If we can grow our relationships to kind of stay in that type of environment, then we can understand that advice is taken a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
You know, as how it's needed.
Because everyone needs some help. Everybody needs a little guidance. And I can look at something, whether it be a math problem or anything else, right? I can look at something and I just can't see the answer. I can't see how to get the answer.
Or sometimes we're too close to the situation.
Right. Someone else comes in, look at it for 10 minutes, say, oh, yeah, you need to do this. I'm like, I was right there, but I just couldn't see it. Same thing in your relationship. You're so close to the situation. Plus, you have your own point of view.
Right. You've been staring at it so long that now the answer
because I'm trying to be objective, but I'm holding on to my point of view. So,
Good point. Good point.
So you can't see.
Right.
And you can't see an out because you have to hold on to your point of view. So someone else comes in and give you a suggestion or some advice that can help you to get beyond that. So if you look at it this way, maybe this, that. So that helps.
But that unsolicited advice, you got to be careful about that, right? When
you
people just jump in and then they do it once and they do it twice and they do it all the time and they think it's okay. So sometimes when people do that, we have to be able to stand up and say, hey, look, you're my friend. I value your opinion, but...
And not now. Not this time.
Or if I ask you for it, then that's when I want it.
And sometimes you have to go there with people.
You do.
Because people will cross that line.
People don't know.
Right.
People don't know because... As the saying always go, I've always done it.
Right.
I've always given you advice and it's never been an issue. So it may get to a point where it really bothers you. So if people are giving you advice and you don't want it, sometimes you just have to draw that line for them.
And you have to tell them.
Yeah, and you have to do it in a nice, kind way.
You can't
so that
say,
people
when
understand.
I want your help, I'll ask for it.
You can say that if that's how you all talk. sometimes that's what it takes for people to hear what you're trying to say. Because sometimes when you say it nice, they don't hear it.
Yeah, that's true.
So again, it all depends on the person.
You have to know your relationship, right?
That's right. That's right. And that's even from your spouse's standpoint. Lots of times spouses say, let me see, if I'm not mistaken, you said the things that I shouldn't say were what you should do.
Oh, yeah, run chills through my bones.
So is
right
that
now.
advice? Is that advice I'm giving, or is that more of a
command
yeah.
or
So that's
an
different?
order? Or yeah.
So what is that? Is that different?
Yeah.
You don't think that's advice?
No, that's
I'm
definitely not advice.
advising you.
You're advising me what to do?
Yeah. If I were you,
It's more of a command or order. I'm ordering you to do this.
No, it's if I were you. That's what you should do. Right. That's
Right.
It's the same
Not
thing.
even if I were you. No, you should do this because I
No,
would do
not
something.
you
else.
should do it. Is
What
what
you
you
should
do.
right.
What you
It's
need
what
to
you
do.
should right.
What you need to do
Right.
is tell that person stop bothering you. See?
Exactly.
And that's from a loving standpoint because
It is, but it all depends on when I'm ready to receive it or not.
so obviously you don't receive any of that when I say what you need to do is
You got to
what
go back to
should
that
do.
podcast when I told you. Man. That's one of the things. Take off the list.
So I don't know. So what do you think? So you do believe that we should take advice? Absolutely. Advice is a great thing.
It is. It is. But
At
also
the right place, the right time, from the right person.
right. But always have your perspective mixed in with that advice. Just
Right.
don't take that person's
Right,
advice as
right.
that's it.
Yeah,
So-
I agree. So I guess Jason doesn't take my advice because I probably give it quite often.
You do. You give it quite a bit. But I mean, I appreciate it. I need it sometimes.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Oh, great. I'm glad.
Now I'm thinking about it. Whenever I give you my advice, you're probably thinking, oh, I don't want her advice.
No, I won't say that. I like your advice. I like it. Yeah.
When it's warranted. Is it ever warranted? Do you ever ask me?
It is warranted and when it's not warranted. So
Okay.
we're good. I get that. I appreciate it. You know why? Because I understand that it's coming from a place of love. And the fact that it's coming from a place of love,
No, he doesn't.
I don't understand it at the time.
Now that we break it down a little further,
Later
right?
on, I say, man, that was coming from a place of love. But doggone it, that love hurt. So
So
all
it
depends.
goes back to that statement, truth hurts. The
Truth does
the
hurt. It
truth
smack you
hurts.
right between the eyes. Yes. If
And
you know.
you know what? The only time the truth hurts is when you don't want to recognize the
Exactly.
truth.
That's
I think
what I'm saying.
That's part of
Yeah.
it. When you don't want to see the truth. Because if you see the truth, it can't hurt you because you're already aware of it, right?
But if I'm not ready to come to terms with that truth, then it hurts.
Do you give me unwarranted advice?
All the time. I tell
I'm
you.
glad he recognizes that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to say I don't give it to you because I tell you, baby, you know what? You should have did it this way.
No, you come back and
had
you say,
you done that, you
it
wouldn't
right.
be going through this
Yep,
right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you had to listen to me,
Right.
that's what you say.
I do say that, don't I? Yeah.
See how we don't even recognize how we're giving
Yeah.
unwarranted
But that's
advice?
done. But that's done out of love, right? I'm not just saying it just to be saying it.
I don't think it's not out of love. I think it's more out of being right.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I think that's
if
more
I'm right,
ego.
I'm right, right?
No, because what if I did do it your way and then decided to do it my way after because your way didn't work, but you only see the way I
Yeah,
did.
because you should have stuck with my way. You didn't put your way in there now, so I don't even.
But
I
you
can't.
just
I have.
said mix your own thing in it. See, I got you. So now which one is it going to be?
Which one's it gonna be?
You do, but I think you should mix your own in there because that's the only way you're going to be satisfied.
That's so
You
true.
can't take somebody's whole advice and take it full face and full blown. You have to put your spin on it so it works for you. And if it doesn't work out, it's on you, as opposed to going back and saying, I did it your way and it didn't work.
I have to
so
agree.
so when I come back to you and I say, you know what, Jason, I did it that way and it didn't work, how do you feel? Right. See? Yeah. So, but if I listen to you and I put it in, mix it in with me, then it's back on me because I took the advice from you and I put my own thing in it. And if it didn't work out, that's on me, not on you. Wow. So I think that's what we need to take away from advice.
Yeah.
Advice is just given as that, as merely that, as advice.
Right.
It's advising someone of an option, of a possibility.
And look at it as an option, right?
That's it.
This
But-
is not
right.
a must do or you have to. It's an option.
And so therefore you take several options. That's why we
Right.
seek advice.
And
Seek advice from more than one source.
And then you weigh out your options.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you make the best decision for you and whatever the situation is with your relationship moving forward.
Excellent. That's exactly what you should do. So advice, again, as we start to wrap up, advice is good.
Advice
Warranted
is good.
and unwarranted.
Absolutely. Ask and receive and weigh the odds.
Yeah.
Look at your options and actually seek advice from more than one person or thing.
And see what's better for your relationship and what's going to help you.
In the end. Yeah.
Yeah, in the end. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah.
What's going to help you in the end. Because that's all we want. We just want a happy relationship. That's all. We want a successful marriage. We want to be happy. Right? We do want to be happy, right, baby?
All the time.
Okay, cool.
That's the
Yeah,
only
that's
thing I want.
All right, me too.
Well,
Yeah.
not the only, but
Yeah.
it's up there. But if I have happiness, then sometimes that takes the place of anything else that I may feel like I'm lacking in.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah. When you know what, when you're happy and you feel good, it just makes the day just glide.
It's just your
by.
whole life,
Yeah.
because that's why
Yeah.
people say money can't buy you happiness. Now,
Right.
I'd be darned if it don't add to
Right,
it.
yeah.
It sure
it's a
adds to
close
that
second.
happiness.
It's
baby.
right there, baby. It's right there.
Neck and neck.
Yeah.
It's money coming down. And then they got happiness online, happiness online.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Happiness and money right behind. Yep.
So they make a huge difference, but all in all, everything is everything when you have it all together, right? I don't know what any of that means, so we're just gonna wrap it up now, guys. So as always, we're in it to win it.